can doulas birth a baby?
So, because doulas are considered non-medical professionals, meaning we don't do any checks, your doula, I should say, shouldn't go inside, do any vaginal exams. Even technically taking blood pressure is a little bit outside of a doula scope, because that's a medical process, right? Unfortunately, it has become extremely necessary because these providers is out here acting crazy, and Black women are dying from simple things like blood pressure, which again, super preventable. So some doulas might take your blood pressure, but in terms of like the extensive super medical processes, a doula should not be handling those. People do sometimes have what we call an unassisted birth, which means there's basically no medical professional present. It's just basically mom relying on herself and her body, and she can hire a doula for that. It's kind of at the discretion of the doula whether or not they want to put themselves in that position, because it opens them up to liability if anything goes wrong. If you're the only one there, and we're not trying to ever say a mom will lie, but if you're the only one there, it does put you in a place of liability if something goes wrong. If she says, well, you touched my baby and now my baby had a bacterial infection, I don't know, something like that, you have to prove that you didn't, which is really hard. So again, there are unassisted births. You can definitely hire a doula for that, but the doula has to agree to that or not, and that's the doula's choice and right. But even with an unassisted birth, your doula is still that, like, birthing a baby, catching a baby as we call it, it would be considered out of the scope of practice for a doula. Okay, that's good to know. Because I know a lot of people, they think that, like a doula does it all, pretty much takes the place of a midwife. And no, they are two separate entities, both equally important to the birthing process, both equally beneficial to the birthing process, but it's two separate jobs. Okay, so I learned something. The next question is, can doulas give lactation advice? Okay. Some doulas are trained and well versed in lactation. So it could be within scope for some of them to offer advice, right? For example, I am a full spectrum doula and CLC, certified lactation counselor. I have been officially certified to give evidence-based counseling and support. It is important, though, to always discuss what training, certifications, experience your doula has to determine if you would need to seek additional supports, like a lactation consultant, like a pelvic floor therapist, those types of things. So always, while you are consulting with the doula and you're trying to vet your birth team, which again is especially important, you have the right to choose who is on your birth team, from your OBGYN to your midwife to your doula, to the nurses who come in and out of the room. You can fire everybody if you want. But kind of make sure that you have a team who is in alignment. So you're having these initial discussions. Again, that's something that you want to seek out, seek information you want to make sure you have. Do you have training in lactation? What is that training? Because some people could just have personal experience, and that doesn't knock anything. We as Black people, part of our culture, right? We share our stories, kind of do things that way. But that could lead to you receiving misinformation because it might not be evidence-based information. So again, kind of being able to decipher those things and really knowing the difference between what training is, what the training entailed, and who has it and who doesn't is important for you to find out as someone who is seeking out doula support. Okay. So I guess that kind of piggybacks on this next question, piggybacks on that one. So what were like the different services do doulas provide? And what services do you specifically provide? All right. So this one is a little bit of a loaded question too, because it's important to note that there are actually several different kinds of doulas, and the types of service offering depends on the doulas, to be honest. Some doulas only offer postpartum support, for example. Some specialize in Reiki or Bozo techniques. Some doulas offer full spectrum support, meaning prenatal through postpartum. Some doulas only offer labor and delivery support. There are abortion doulas, death or transition of life doulas, and that's just a few, So there are several different kinds of doulas, and again, kind of depending on what they specialize in, what they've been trained for, etc., their background, whatever it is. it kind of will impact what they offer or what they do.
Okay.
A really quick story. Before I doula I actually was a death doula. I took care of both of my great grandmothers through hospice. It really speaks to a calling. A lot of times our ancestral practices with granny midwives and things of that nature, they would describe being called into birth work by God. Like, it wasn't just something you say, you know what, I'm gonna go do this. Like, it was something that was passed down through generations based off what God had determined for them to be able to do. So knowing of death doulas and things like that, it's amazing to me to have been able to say that before I could even utter the word doula and know what I was talking about, I actually was a death doula. So again, it just speaks to that calling that I feel like I have to do with the work.
Wow, that's amazing.
As for me, I'm a doula that specializes in giving culturally competent care to Black families. Lactation, herbal remedies, and father support is so big to me. Like, I do not like women who are not in the loop with what's going on, or if they in the room while we're in labor and they're sleeping. Unacceptable. I rope in dads. They get the same counseling. During my prenatal education, I teach them different techniques that I would be using. So that way, if I need to rest during the middle of the labor after 6 hours, I say, Dad, all right, you tap in, apply some counter pressure, do some hip squeezes, and Dad knows exactly what to do. And a lot of times that's so important to the men because they don't really know how to help necessarily. Same way it's taboo for us to kind of know what's going on. They almost a little worse more often than not. Really don't know what's going on. So being able to empower them to be able to help, again, it just gives them a sense of pride. Like, I helped birth my baby. I would support my wife or my girlfriend, whatever it is. Like, I was able to participate, and that makes them have a sense of pride about the process, which is so important.
Yes, that's good. Yeah, because I was going to ask you, did you have like within your support, do you implement a lot of the the dads and stuff like that, or partners?
Absolutely. I call my husband a male doula because I did my training online, but it was a 14-month training. Most trainings are usually like 3 days, so I went through an extensive training. But every single training day of my training, my husband was right here next to me just listening. So he's so familiar with the process. Obviously, he was with me through both of my births, and for my private practice, Nourish our seeds, like whenever if there's ever a couple who needs, I won't say therapy because we're not therapists, but like just some just relationship counseling, I'm like, hey, talk to your guy over here real quick. A man's perspective from someone who kind of understands, and he jumps right in. So I really place a lot of emphasis on making sure that the fathers of my clientele feel supported as well.
That's good. Yeah. It's depending on what the doula provides, some can provide like a postpartum support as well. Yes.
So a postpartum doula, it can be extremely beneficial in a lot of different ways. And again, like you said, depending on what the doula offers, you may have that support already built in, right? You may not need to have a postpartum doula separate from your full spectrum doula, because full spectrum doulas also cover you in the postpartum period. You may need still a postpartum doula even with your full spectrum doula, because some doulas only cover you postpartum for a week or two or a month, it depends. And then you can hire a doula who specializes in postpartum for however long that you guys agree upon. But oftentimes Black women don't have that strong support system in the home. So instead of being able to simply tend to baby or recover and rest, mom has to worry about how and what she's going to eat. The laundry was piled up since before she went into labor. The dishes that have been sitting. The list can go on and on. Postpartum doulas actually can help with those tasks if that's, again, a part of what you guys agree to. Or if that's something that they're not really willing to do, they might be able to help you tend the baby overnight and types of things. So again, it's really important to kind of discuss those things beforehand to know the style and level of care that your doula is willing to provide, and ensure that what's offered is what you need. So that way, if it doesn't go as far as you would want, you can figure out other people and other things, or additional people, I should say, or other people and other things.
Wow, doulas do so much. Oh my
gosh. Part of my a part of my doula plus lactation package, I go and I cook a meal, and it's a specific soup that's geared towards kind of what your labor experience was. So for instance, if you had a lot of bleeding, I'll put iron rich foods in the soup, like some broccoli, some food, those types of things. But yeah, like it really depends on, again, what the person is willing to give, and not to say that I do superwoman work, even though I kind of do, but that's just what I offer as a part of who I am, because again, I know these types of things and I'm able to draw on that knowledge. So yes, I would say indeed, postpartum doulas, make sure that again, you understand what your doula is capable of, what she's willing to offer, or he, because there are male doulas too, very few, but I haven't found too many of them. But again, you're having that discussion. What do you do? How much of it do you do? How long will you do it for? And what right? And also be able to say, kind of have an idea of what you want, so that you can say, this is what I expect as someone hiring a postpartum doula. And that way you guys can figure something out, or just understand that it's not going to work between you. And again, you can go find someone else.
Right. Wow. So to piggyback what you were just saying, as far as like the meals and stuff like that, I mean, even when, like, I know a few people who kind of have the difficulty of, as far as going back to work, like they may only have literally 2 weeks with their child, but they want to breastfeed, they want to do, these things. And some are remote workers, so they may not even feel comfortable with, doing that simultaneously. The baby could be crying, that sort of thing. So like doulas, I mean, could they even help with that process? They may have their 2 weeks with their baby, have to go back to work, but then maybe the doula could be there, maybe for another week or two, just to help with that transition.
Yes. Yep. I have a few of my doula sisters that I network with who specialize in postpartum, and they serve their families. Again, it's all dependent on what you agree to and come up with your doula. But I know she supports moms for months. Like, I haven't heard, maybe if the shortest term that I've heard her say, I want to say, is maybe a few weeks, close to a month. But it's usually an ongoing thing for most times it's usually up to the first year that you can find doulas postpartum doulas, especially if they specialize in that, who support you.
Wow. That is amazing. So now that I know, I will be getting one, and it'll probably be you.
Please. Yes.
Oh, so that's another thing. I guess this is kind of like off our questions, but like if somebody wanted to use a doula that they knew, but they were out of their state, how would that work? Yes.
So COVID turned us all upside down, right? But one thing that it did teach us to do is learn how to operate virtual settings. A lot of doulas are now able to reach other states, other areas, without having to physically be present, because they offer virtual counseling. I have done it a few times, and I will say it's a lot harder it is being in person, and sometimes it's really not like actually harder because of anything that you could probably initially think of. It's usually like I had a nurse move the place where they had anchored the camera, like their phone, so that I could be able to communicate with them. And as I'm like saying, excuse me, I am a part of this team, I'm like supposed to, I'm here too, they were acting like they couldn't hear me, and that just made it really hard for me to communicate with my clients. So things like that you have to kind of really kind of weigh and consider. And obviously when you're in the middle of labor, you're not worried about no phone, so it's me talking to the partner and things like that. So, but it is an offering nonetheless. You can definitely have wonderful experiences with having your doula virtually. Also, because of COVID, most hospitals, I feel like they're starting to loosen up. I can't speak to everybody's state and so forth, but I know here in Connecticut, at one point they weren't able to allow more than one person into the birthing room.
I was gonna say,
so it allows for you to still be able to have access to your support, which again, we know all the ways in which it's beneficial and all the reasons why you should still definitely have support, but in a virtual setting. So that way, if you, for instance, let's at Yale now it's 2 people, right? But let's say you had to choose your doula, your mom, and your husband. You might want to pick your mom and your husband, right? So that, again, it just allows for you to be able to incorporate more support, all while not taking up your limited birth people admission.
Right. Okay, that's good to know. Okay, so are doulas used in both the hospital setting and out of hospital setting for giving birth? So like if someone was going to like a birthing center or at home or in the hospital, doulas can be used in all different settings? Or
absolutely. So your doula, again, I feel like I said this so many times, but it's just the nature of the work, right? It depends on what your doula is, where your doula is willing to go. But there is no limit on where your doula can go outside of whatever boundaries they create for themselves, right? Some doulas might not want to be in a hospital setting because, again, they act real crazy sometimes in there, especially with doulas. So they might not support hospital births. They may only do home births. But like I said, there's no limit. Like if your doula can serve you in a hospital, your doula can serve you in your mama's house, your doula can serve you at your home. Wherever you're deciding to birth, your doula has a way to support you there, again, unless that's something that they just choose not to do.
Right. Okay. Are there multiple positions for birth that a woman could use, or is laying the only position option? And then how would you go about voicing your preferences about different positions, if there are some?
Okay, so there are so many ways that you could deliver your baby. And I will say laying down is probably literally the worst way to do it because it goes against gravity and it's actually against our nature. Like, that's just not how we're supposed to give birth. I will say it's important to do what feels comfortable, right? However your body leads you, do it. Sometimes I've seen people get into position and lay down. And again, I know that's against their body, but it's what's comfortable. And that's all that matters. So again, just kind of pay attention to what your body's telling you and listen to that. But I'll go over some different options. So you can give birth on your hands and knees, or in a kneeling position. And some of the benefits of those types of positions are they take pressure off of the spine. It eases back pain. It might help boost your baby's oxygen levels. It can reduce tears when you are in that position. And it opens the pelvis, which, again, baby has to be able to get through for delivery. So that's a few different ways right there, right? And then you can also squat. That's kind of more of our natural way that
I've seen that.
Exactly. Birth is usually depicted back hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years ago. Women were in squatting positions. And that includes all different variations. So you might have a side lunge where one leg is a little higher, you know. Again, your body's going to do whatever feels comfortable. So however that is for you, get into that position. But squatting actually decreases the need for a lot of delivery tools like forceps or vacuums, just because, again, everything's moving and you can really get baby out.
Wow, that's crazy, because that you mentioned that about the hips, opening them up, because I know when I was giving birth to my daughter, I was in labor for like 29 hours. And, girl. And finally, when I got my body to really relax, immediately I felt her go down. But as soon, like, she actually came out in the sack. They had to like break it. Yeah, so I had no water breaking, nothing. Yeah, so she actually came out in the sack.
Oh my gosh, I love that.
But I could feel, so I was kind of like on my side at first, laying down, and I felt her go down, and then when I pushed again, I felt her even more come down. So now the sack is like exposed, right? And then they actually hurried up and moved me, like tried to move me this way, and my hips couldn't move. Like I couldn't, they were like locked in place.
Bet. Yeah, you got a like, baby in
that
there.
Hurts.
Yeah.
You know, why can't I just do it that way? They were like, no. We have to move you, you know. And I feel like that was just because the midwife, that was her comfortability to, you know,
wholeheartedly,
give, you know, to birth the baby that way. But I was just like, girl. I can't move.
I can't.
My legs were literally like stuck.
Yeah, I can't even do that. So
yeah.
But yes,
wow.
And that goes to, I want to make sure I hit on the second part of the question too, which was how do you say, like, this is how I'm about to do this? And I will say this is when it's important that whoever is your support in the room, whether it be your doula, baby's dad, mom, whoever it is, your best friend, is kind of able to pick up on those things. Because if you are unable to move and your body feels good going through a process that doesn't really feel that great, you don't need to be moved. So that's when support person steps in and says, I don't think that's going to work. Without having them call security, because they do get a little fidgety like that sometimes. But firmly, but with some assertiveness, that's not going to work. She doesn't like that. Does anybody else hearing her say she can't do that? Making it aware, like, because again, they get into this mindset of, I'm gonna do this my way, and it's like, sis, this is not your birth, sir. This is not your birth. I am in the process of doing something. You're not about to interrupt it, and just being able to really just reject it. No, that's not comfortable. I'm not doing that. I cannot do that. I will not. Like, those again, just type of statements.
Yeah. That's good. Now, the next one would be, what is a birthing plan and why is it important?
Okay, so a birth plan is practically a document that you clearly lay out what you envision for your birth, right? So whether you want delayed cord clamping or not, whether you want baby circumcised, if you want them to wipe the baby down after baby comes out of you before they put them on your baby on your chest, those types of things. Just kind of, again, just a clear laid out way of what you want and envision for your birth. Birth plans are really important because it is a document that can be shared first and foremost with anybody who's going to be present. So that way your midwife or your OBGYN knows she doesn't want that baby thrown on her after, it comes out covered in blood and lanugo. That's a great thing. But she doesn't want So basically gives everybody the opportunity to be on the same page and understand what you want. So that way there's less of a chance for them to kind of directly and deliberately go against that. This
might be kind of random in these questions, but so a lot of people have asked me, as far as what you could eat.
Yes.
Can I eat during pregnancy? Because when I was looking up everything, everybody was like, no, they're not going to let you eat. You can't eat. Your last meal better be, way hours before, and it's just like, because you never know the timing. And then they say, I've heard, and I don't know if this is a myth, but pretty much doctors request that so that way while you're trying to push, you don't have a bowel movement. It helps prevent having a bowel movement.
Yep, that, and because if they rush you into an emergency C-section, there's a chance of you aspirating on your vomit if you get nauseous or something like that because you've eaten heavier, those types of things. And that goes to show you what they're kind of planning for, right? Like, they don't want you to eat in case you need an emergency surgery. Why would I necessarily need an emergency surgery?
Exactly.
Those are definitely some of the reasons as to why they are not trying to allow people to eat. But to that I say, if you were a marathon runner, would you starve yourself the day before your marathon, or would you be nourishing your body and making sure that you have water available to you and all those things? Of course you would, right? It's ridiculous that we think that women are going to go through labor, which is a strenuous process on the body, and not have them be able to nourish themselves. It doesn't make any sense, right? So nutrition snacks are definitely something that I feel like all women should definitely include into their hospital bags. Like when you're packing, we want to bring things that bring us comfort, like your favorite robe or blanket, all the good stuff that you put in your hospital bag, but include that. Sneak yourself some snacks in there, because some places still are really outdated with that policy of you cannot eat, you cannot drink other than water. And I don't even think they give water. I think they make you chew ice. Those and that's how it was for me. That is ridiculous.
And that was 2019. So that wasn't,
it ain't that
years and years ago.
Right. It's sick. But I also want to kind of talk about some good things to pack in reference to labor snacks and things like that. Raw vegetables like broccoli, carrot, cauliflower, celery sticks, yogurt or fruit pouches. Go-Go Squeeze is one of those fruit pouches that you don't have to refrigerate, which is really good. Because it's you can carry it where you want. Trail mix is a big one. You can make it yourself or you can buy some, but it has healthy fats and proteins as well as carbs, which will help you feel full and give you energy. Dried fruits, dried raisins, mangoes, apples, especially coconut. They provide quick carbs for energy, right? Crackers as well. They're bland. They're easy enough for you to put something in your stomach, but so you don't feel empty. Like if you were feeling like I don't really want to eat, because sometimes we during the process of labor. So, but if you were feeling like I need something in my stomach, but I don't want it to be heavy or rich, do a cracker. Cheez-Its, Goldfish, those types of things. Granola bars, protein bars, peanut butter sandwiches. Again, all of that is protein, good fats. Stay away from this if you can, but some people don't like the healthy stuff. I want to make sure everybody gets covered. But things like Snickers, Twizzlers, gummy bears, those actually do have fats and proteins that will help you feel full as well. Pretzels, same as crackers. They're bland, but it's something to put in your belly. Cheese has a lot of fats and proteins for energy, but it could upset your stomach later if you're eating it later on in labor. So we want to maybe avoid that towards the midpoint or end of your labor. In terms of drinks, sports drinks are actually really good, like Gatorade.
I was going to ask you that.
Yes, Body Armor, vitamin waters, because those provide electrolytes to keep you properly hydrated during the process of labor. And the biggest one in terms of drinks, if you don't have any allergies, I actually had a mom who had an allergy to coconut water, is awesome because it has the most electrolytes and it's a wonderful source of water content. So those are just some things to consider. You don't have to have every last one of those on that list, but those are some things you can pack to make yourself feel better and have some energy during labor.
Right. Okay. Is it true that certain types of food can keep dilation going and your energy up during labor?
Yes. So given what I said previously, there are certainly foods that can help boost your energy levels, but there are also herbs that can help tone your uterus, aiding dilation. But you should never really take a herb without proper guidance. So I will say yes to that. I think, again, you should consult a herbalist who is properly trained and kind of has a good understanding not only of the plants, but how it will interact with your body. Because I don't even know if for liability reasons, I'm not even going to say what I was about to say, but there are definitely herbs that I have used to help my moms who have had stalled labors be able to jumpstart their labor again, because I know how to stimulate the uterus with an herb, those types of things. So there are, but it takes a little bit more of an in-depth knowledge to kind of, for dilation purposes, knowing what to eat for dilation. One of the common ones that I kind of always hear are dates. Some people think eating a date is going to help, and there's really no evidence that points to that, but our ancestors have practiced, those types of things for forever, and they do kind of have a pattern. The key point with anything like that, though, is the frequency in which you take it and when you start taking it. You can't eat a date because it's your due date and then go into labor. You need to have them, for a few weeks and kind of how much you're eating and kind of slowly climbing up. And that's the same thing with the herbal remedies as well. So just keep that in mind. There's no magic bullet. You want to make sure that you are working actively as your as your pregnancy progresses, even in terms of your stretching, making sure that you're moving your body properly, going for walks, those types of things. You can't wake up tomorrow and decide you're going to lift a ton's worth of weight. You have to build up to that, right? So again, just be intentional about what we're doing with our bodies and making sure that we're not just trying to find a quick, easy fix. It doesn't work like that.
What's the different experience with being in labor at a birthing center versus being in labor at a hospital? I guess what were some, I guess the setting, obviously would be different. So you wouldn't have a lot of like medical equipment, I guess, around you. Like, would you be on IV, that type of thing?
That's a good question. I'll say when we go to a hospital, right, it's because 9 times out of 10, it's because something's wrong. Right. Having a baby is one of those very few exceptions to that, right? Okay. So given that, the hospital setting kind of prepares you more for the need of intervention when the whole goal is to just let your body do what it's designed to do. Right. There's almost like a predatory air, it seems like, of waiting for the slightest sign of something to go wrong, just so they could jump in and do something, which increases their paycheck, right? Right. At the birth center, it's more geared towards creating a comfortable environment, and an environment of less interference in the natural process. So they definitely have tools available to them in the birth center to be able to intervene when necessary. I'm sure I'm almost certain they have phlebotomists, but every birth center is its own standing thing, and they have their own policies and things like that. But like I said, it's just less interference in a natural process, which actually aids the process in going further, faster and smoother.
Okay, because I was thinking, even like in a birthing center, like there wouldn't be any like epidural.
Nope.
Anything like that, right? Because I mean, and that's a whole separate doctor anyway in itself.
Exactly. So they don't have anesthesiologists on deck to administer an epidural. When you go to a birth center to birth, you are going for an unmedicated birth. And if things need to get, if things escalate, if something goes wrong, you absolutely have the ability to transfer to a hospital. It's not like you're locked into the birth center, and if something goes wrong, you're stuck. But it's a wonderful place, I would say, to start, because again, if you need more, you can be transferred over to the hospital if you needed to. Okay. But imagine being able to go into an environment where they're not like, let's we can cut her open today, or let's have a medical student come in and try to perform a episiotomy on this, like,
exactly,
so if you don't want to birth at your home, which I think we all need to start pushing for because of science itself, we have a microbiome. Look that up. And birth inside that microbiome, your baby's healthier. Everything, again, just the familiarity of everything just makes it go smoother, right? But if you're not comfortable with that for whatever reason, the birth center is the next best step, because again, it's still, you have access to medical tools and professionals. However, it's still that nice comforting environment, and they're not like hounding you to try to intervene in your body's process or trying to dictate which position you're in when you get, like, that doesn't happen in birth centers. Okay,
that's good. I think my goal is for at home. That's definitely my goal. I know that it doesn't, at least what I've seen, it doesn't happen as often. Everybody's like, as soon as you're pregnant, what hospital are you going to, to give birth? Like, that's like the first question.
Exactly. And we need to change the narrative. I think talking about these things will help kind of reframe our thinking of that. We do that because that's our norm. The same reason why we see at the OBGYN, who we don't really like and who we think is rough every time they touch us, now we're staying with them to deliver our babies, because grandma went there, and so did my mom, and so did my cousin, and that's kind of where we've been. But once we start realizing again that we have a choice and an option, we do not have to deal with this person, we do not have to hire this person to be a part of our birth team. Like, we got to start reframing our thinking, because it's so much more beneficial to birth at home. It's so much more beneficial to go to a provider where you feel comfortable and respected and listened to, because if they don't respect you right now, you think that when it's time for me in a compromised position, they're going to be like, oh, I know she didn't want that. Like, no, they're going to do that. So we got to start changing narratives and reframing our thinking about, our intentions behind where we birth, who we have around us when we birth, and those types of things.
Yeah, because I would say, in like my experience, I'm a first time mom, and my first appointment, like, I was so ready to schedule it. I hadn't hit the 8-week mark yet, and I think I had like 3 more weeks left or something like that. And when I got in, I made sure, that I looked up what I guess like centers or clinics were within my network. And I made sure that she was African American, I could relate with her. She could give me all the information. Girl, I get there, no enthusiasm. That, I'm thinking, it's in the paperwork. This is my first pregnancy. You're going to be excited for me. You're going to be excited about it. I mean, it was just like pretty much. Yeah. And then she was like, okay, do you have any questions for me? Pretty much she did the whole sonogram and everything and checked Priya out and made sure she was good and everything, that it was a live birth. You know what I mean? And, and she was just like, okay, now do you have any questions for me? I'm like, where's all the foods that I'm supposed to avoid? Where's all that? Exactly. All medications that I'm not, I don't take medications, but just at least have a list for me that, if I were to take Tylenol or something like that, like no, I wasn't given anything. It was so unfortunate. So I did not go back to her. So I had that knowledge to say that, I do have the power to switch if I wanted to. I'm not locked into this provider, so I knew I had that power. Yes. But then I get to the next clinic and I get it that, they have doctors on call. So pretty much they wanted me to rotate to the different midwives and OBGYNs so that way I can kind of get familiar with them. But through the whole process, I mean, you're starting out every 4 weeks, then every 2 weeks. So eventually you're not really going to, for all the providers that they had, I was never able to get to all of them. So now I'm panicking, like, I hope I get the one that I really like. And yes, and a blessing was I did actually have her twice, and she was the one that was on call. So everything worked out. But I know for the people who may end up getting a male, and they're the ones that's on call, from where you're at. And it's just like, for me and my husband, that's just not a thing. Like, we don't go male providers for anything. Primary care, pediatrician for my daughter, there's no male, unless, I have a son and then he would have his male doctor. But yeah, it's just like, I was just so nervous. And
absolutely. You have every right to, like you said, pick. I'm glad you answered.
But then in that situation where I had to rotate, I kind of felt like I didn't have the choice to say, I want you to deliver my baby. Right. So like, but I guess, do you really have a say in that situation if you have to keep rotating?
I would say no, but that goes back to your ability to switch providers, right? If you were to find a provider whose policy is that we have to rotate you, so that way if any given of us are on call, you are familiar with them. That means that if that's something you're not comfortable with or you do not want, then that's when you say, actually, I want to find a smaller practice where I don't have to be rotated. So it really goes back to that initial kind of like, what are their policies? Finding those things out initially before you lock it in, before your first visit. What is your cesarean section rate? How often? How often are you performing a not Heimlich maneuver? Lord have mercy. A rotation baby. Are you familiar with doing those things? Do you birth breech babies? How do you feel about VBACs? Vaginal births after cesareans? Those really feel these people out, because when it's time, you don't want to not know. My baby's breech. I don't really want to have a C-section. Can my baby? Is my doctor well versed in flipping a baby so that I can have a vaginal birth if I really wanted to? You don't want to wait until you're in a moment to find these things out. So again, vet your birth team. Make sure you know